The tunnel at the edge of the village. I don't usually share personal stories. Most of the time, I keep things to myself, let them sit in the back of my mind until they fade. But this one, it's different. It's been years and I still can't shake it. Every now and then when I'm lying in bed, the memory creeps back, sharp as ever. It's not just a story to me. It's something that happened, something real, and it still makes my chest tighten when I think about it too long. I'm not sure if telling it will help, but I need to try. This was back in 2019. I was living in a small village in Aomori, Japan, a quiet place tucked away in the countryside. I'd moved there from Seoul for work, a temporary job at a logistics company that paid decently but kept me busy. The village was the kind you'd expect from rural Japan. Narrow roads, old wooden houses with tiled roofs, and fields stretching out toward the hills. At night, it was silent, save for the occasional hum of a distant car or a dog barking somewhere far off. I liked it. It felt safe, peaceful. I'd always been a city guy, but there was something about the stillness that grew on me. I lived in a small apartment, nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom place with creaky floors and thin walls. My neighbors were friendly, though there was Mr. Kato, an older guy who'd bring me homemade miso soup sometimes, and a few families who'd wave when I passed by. I'm not small, 6 feet tall, broad shoulders, so I never felt uneasy walking around, even late at night. Back then, I had a habit of taking night walks on weekends. After a long week of overtime, it was my way of unwinding. I'd put on my jacket, slip in my earbuds, and wander the empty streets for an hour or two. The air was always crisp, and the quiet let my mind settle. One Saturday night, though, something felt off. I'd gone to bed early, exhausted from work, but I woke up suddenly around 2 a.m. No reason, no noise, just this heavy feeling, like the air in my room had thickened. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for my heart to slow down. It didn't. Instead, I got the strange sense that someone was standing outside my bedroom door. Not moving, not breathing, just there. I'm not the type to get spooked easily, but my skin was crawling. I got up, opened the door, and of course, nothing. The hallway was empty, my front door locked tight. I lived alone, and there was no way anyone could have gotten in. Still, the feeling wouldn't leave. My shoulders felt stiff, my chest heavy, like something was pressing down on me. I tried lying back down, but it was no use. I grabbed a glass of water, paced around, and finally decided to go for a walk. Maybe the fresh air would clear my head. It was later than I usually went out, past 2:30 a.m., but the streets were as quiet as ever. The streetlights cast long, pale pools of light on the pavement, and the houses were dark, their curtains drawn. The only sound was my sneakers scuffing against the road and the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. As I walked, though, the silence started to feel wrong. Not peaceful, but empty, like the world had gone hollow. I kept getting this prickling sensation on the back of my neck, like someone was watching me. I'd stop, turn around, check behind me. Nothing, just the empty street stretching into the dark. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was just tired, but the feeling grew stronger with every step. By the time I reached the lower part of the village, my heart was thudding in a way that wasn't just from walking. That's when I saw the tunnel. It wasn't anything special, just an old underground passageway that cut beneath a railway line. I'd passed it plenty of times during the day. Kids rode their bikes through it, and locals used it as a shortcut to the other side of the village. It was maybe 50 meters long, concrete walls, low ceiling, nothing out of the ordinary. But that night, standing at its entrance, I felt something I'd never felt before. My stomach dropped, like I just stepped off a ledge. The air around the tunnel was thick, damp, carrying a faint sour smell, like wet earth and something else I couldn't place. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to turn back, to take the long way home. I stood there for a moment, trying to shake it off. I'm not a kid, I told myself. I'm too old to be scared of a tunnel. But my hands were clammy and my pulse was racing. I could have walked away, but for some reason, I didn't. Maybe I was stubborn. Maybe I just wanted to get home faster. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The tunnel was darker than I expected. The overhead lights were dim, flickering slightly, casting shadows that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking. The floor was slick, covering a thin layer of grime that made my steps echo faintly. The ceiling was low enough that I had to hunch a little, and the walls felt closer than they should have, like the space was pressing in on me. Halfway through, I started to regret my decision. The air felt heavier, and that sour smell was stronger now, clinging to the back of my throat. Then I saw him. He was standing near the middle of the tunnel, a tall figure in the shadows. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, but as I got closer, I could make him out. He was pressed against the wall, his forehead resting on the concrete, his shoulders hunched. He was muttering something, low and fast, words I couldn't understand. I froze. My first thought was that he might be hurt, maybe drunk or lost, but something about the way he stood, the way he sounded, made my blood run cold. There was no reason for anyone to be here at this hour. Not like this. I didn't move. I didn't call out. I just stood there, holding my breath, hoping he hadn't noticed me. The muttering grew louder, more frantic, and then he stopped. Slowly, he turned his head toward me. I couldn't see his face clearly. The light was too dim, but I felt his eyes on me, like they were boring straight through my skull. My legs felt like lead, but I forced myself to back away. One step, then another. The muttering started again, faster now, and he took a step toward me. That was it. I turned and ran. I don't know how long it took me to get out of the tunnel. It felt like forever, the walls stretching endlessly, the echo of my footsteps drowning out everything else. The whole time, I swore I could hear that muttering behind me, faint but persistent, like it was stuck to me. I didn't stop until I was back in my apartment, slamming the door shut and locking it. My hands were shaking, my shirt damp with sweat. I stood there, leaning against the door, trying to catch my breath, telling myself it was nothing, just some guy, probably harmless. But I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, tall, still, forehead against the wall. The next morning, I felt like I had barely slept. The fear hadn't gone away. It was still there, coiled in my chest. I didn't want to be alone, so I called a friend, Hiroshi, and asked him to come over. I made up some excuse about not feeling well, but when he got there, I told him everything. Hiroshi was the kind of guy who didn't scare easily. He listened, nodded, and didn't laugh or brush it off, but I could tell he thought I'd overreacted. Still, when I asked if he'd go back to the tunnel with me that evening, just to check it out, he agreed, said it sounded like an adventure. We went around dusk. The tunnel looked different in the fading light, less threatening but still unsettling. The air was cool, the sky streaked with orange and gray. We walked through slowly, our footsteps echoing. There was nothing there. No man, no muttering, just the same damp concrete and flickering lights. Hiroshi teased me, said maybe I'd seen a ghost, but I could tell he was relieved too. We laughed it off, headed back to my place, and spent the night talking, drinking a few beers. For a while, it felt normal again. Then, around dawn, I woke up thirsty. The living room was dark, the TV still on with the volume muted, casting a faint blue glow. Hiroshi wasn't on the couch where he'd been sleeping. I figured he was in the bathroom, but when I checked, it was empty. That's when I heard it, a low, rhythmic muttering coming from the kitchen. My stomach twisted. I didn't want to look, but I forced myself to walk toward the sound. Hiroshi was there, standing in the dark, his forehead pressed against the wall. He was whispering the same fast, unintelligible words I'd heard in the tunnel. I whispered his name, my voice barely audible. No response. The muttering got louder. I stepped closer, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Hiroshi? I said again, louder this time. He stopped, turned his head slowly, and I saw his eyes. They were wrong, empty, like there was nothing behind them. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair, and that's where he collapsed, crumpling to the floor like someone had cut his strings. I rushed over, shaking him, calling his name. He came to after a few seconds, groggy, confused. He didn't remember anything, not standing there, not muttering, nothing. When I told her what happened, he looked pale, almost sick. He said he'd had a dream, something about a man with his head against a wall, and I was standing behind him, watching. I didn't know what to say. We didn't talk about it after that, and he left later that morning. I tried to move on, to convince myself it was a one-off, maybe stress or exhaustion messing with my head. But things didn't go back to normal. I started hearing the muttering again, faint, like it was coming from inside my own skull. At night, I'd dream about the tunnel, sometimes running from the man, sometimes chasing him. I'd wake up soaked in sweat, my heart racing. I stopped taking night walks. I avoided the lower part of the village altogether. Then the rumors started. The village had always been quiet, uneventful, but suddenly, strange things were happening. The hardware store owner vanished one day, left his shop unlocked, and never came back. A young guy from a butcher shop jumped off a roof. No warning, no note. People started whispering about the tunnel. I overheard Mr. Cato talking to another neighbor, saying he'd seen a tall man standing near it one night, muttering to himself. Others had seen him too, or dreamed about him, just like I had. The police started showing up, asking questions, telling people to be cautious. They never said why, but I knew. One evening, during a rainstorm, I saw Mr. Cato walking down the street. He was soaked, no umbrella, head down, moving slowly like he was in a trance. It wasn't like him. He was always careful, always cheerful. I grabbed an umbrella and ran out, calling his name. He didn't stop, didn't even look up. I caught up to him, blocked his path, and that's when I saw his eyes. They were blank, just like Hiroshi's. He was muttering, soft and fast, the same words I couldn't understand. The rain was pounding, thunder rumbling in the distance, and I felt that same cold dread from the tunnel. I grabbed his shoulders, shook him. "Mr. Cato, wake up." Nothing. His muttering grew louder, his body tense. Lightning flashed, and for a split second, I saw his face clearly, empty, lifeless, like he wasn't there. I didn't know what else to do. I slapped him hard, and he collapsed, gasping, his eyes fluttering open. He grabbed my arm, his voice weak. "I'm sorry," he said. "I can't get the whispering out of my head." I dragged him to a nearby shed, out of the rain, and called the police. We stayed there, shivering, until they arrived. Mr. Cato was okay, physically, but he wasn't the same after that. He got sick for a while, and even when he recovered, he seemed distant, haunted. I wasn't much better. The muttering in my head didn't stop. It was faint but constant, like a radio I couldn't turn off. I'd catch myself zoning out, staring at walls, wondering if I was losing it. The village shut the tunnel down not long after. They put up barriers, signs warning people to stay away. Kids were upset. They loved biking through it. But the adults all agreed it was for the best. I didn't stay much longer. I quit my job, moved to a city closer to family, tried to start over. Years have passed and I've built a new life, but I still think about that village, those people. I wonder they ever found peace, if the muttering ever stopped for them. Sometimes when it's late and the house is quiet, I hear it again, just a whisper, faint, like it's coming from far away. I tell myself it's nothing, just my imagination, but I keep my doors locked, and I don't go near tunnels anymore. I don't know what was in that passageway, what it did to us. All I know is that once you hear that sound, it doesn't leave you. It's still there waiting, and I'm not sure it'll ever let me go.